Thanks. Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast.
Hi, it's
Hi.
nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. And we've had a multi-year friendship, mostly online. And you're in Chicago. We were talking about how my daughter's in Chicago. So hopefully, one of these days we're going to get to meet up in person. I would love
Yes,
that.
it'll be great. Well, we met up in person at the conference when I bought your caregiving jar, which is a big, I know. And what's really great is that I just saw that you have like refills,
Refills,
because the people
yes.
that I bought it for, they always talk about, but now I'm like, ooh, I need to get a refill now.
Yes,
Because
I've even been thinking about doing another refill because like I'm a quote person. Like I see
yeah, me
things
too.
that speak to me and I collect them. And I used to refill my sister's jar when I would go see her when she had the reins for mom's care. I would like go visit her and I would stuff more stuff in there. So because she
Yeah.
would, and then at some point then you forget the original ones and you can just rinse and repeat and do it
Yeah,
all over
yeah. And what
again.
was really is really interesting is, and I'll let you get on with the interview. But what's interesting is that I think this is great for the wider audience. When you do buy that, I bought it for a family who's no longer caregiving, but they still use the caregiving jar.
Yeah, it works for, but
Yeah. So it's
most of my content is, I think, applicable for life.
life, right?
It's definitely caregivers in mind. We all need to be prioritizing our self-care. We all need to know that we are enough. We all need to infuse, some little joy in our day. So I have heard that
Yes.
from other people that they stay subscribed. And listen, the after caregiving ends stage is a
Yeah, right.
very, very true stage for caregivers. Like once
Yes.
you're a caregiver, you're kind of always a caregiver. Like it's
Yeah,
never going to leave you.
agreed.
Yeah. Well, let's sit into, speaking of the jar, we always kick off some words of wisdom. So let's see what we got for you here today, Lisa.
Okay, I'm excited.
All right, here's what it says. So it's upside down. You can only save the world if you save yourself first.
Oh, that's so interesting that I would get that, right? That's so interesting because, well, who did that quote? Was it
It
anonymous?
doesn't say. I know
It's
some
an
of them
anonymous,
don't.
yeah, probably.
Anonymous.
Um, because previously, before I was a caregiver, I was a founder of restaurants for the homeless here in Chicago, which are still existing. They're called Inspiration Corporation or Inspiration Cafes, is the original name. And they're here in Chicago. And yeah, and that was my saving the world moment. But um, and what's so fascinating is that the lessons that I learned working with the homeless totally blend in with working with my son Nick, who has a brain injury, and that's how I became a full-time caregiver.
How
The thing,
so?
yeah,
Yeah.
one of the things that I find really fascinating is, okay, well, first of all, the fact that people come up to me and used to say to me, I don't know how you do that. When I was working with the homeless, they still say that to me when I'm working with my own family member who I love and adore. That just kind of, it always freaked me out. You know what I mean? Like it freaks me out more now when I'm working with my son who I love. And I'd be like, what are you saying? Is that what you're saying? Like, so what you're saying is that you wouldn't, have unconditional love for your family member. Is that what's
Yeah.
happening? That's the message that I'm feeling. So it's interesting. And then the other thing is the fact that people never believed in the homeless that we were serving, like their stories and their abilities and their, just their
Their
future.
value
Yeah, their value, their future, all that stuff. It was always like, oh, they were always surprised when they realized, oh, I have more in common with this person than not. And also, I could have been that person. You know what I mean? Like if someone learns that like a medical thing happened and wiped out all their savings and they became homeless. Drug addiction, obviously, addiction's huge in the United States. And so, that comes on, mental illness, mental
yeah.
health, all that. And so it's the same with caregiving, with Nick, because of his brain injury and because he has a specific anoxic brain injury, which is like a harder brain injury than a traumatic brain injury. I mean, in my mind, just because parts of his brain are actually dead, and then with traumatic, it's more like a swelling and then, healing like that. So with Nick's brain, it has to like reroute, find a new path, and it takes longer. So I always say, you climb one mountain when you're traumatic brain injury, but if you have an anoxic brain injury, you're climbing five,
Mhm.
and so it's a longer thing. But that's what I'm saying. Doctors are like, well, I'm not sure I really do that because, like, basically, like, what's his future? And I'm like, oh, no, no, no. Seeing time out. First of all, everyone's valuable from the moment they entered the world. And if we're here supporting and loving him and saying, hey, we're going to be here, we're the people that are going to make this happen. So let's try. And your body always wants to heal, like 100%. Doesn't make a difference what happens. You break your arm, your body's trying to heal. You have a sinus infection, your body's trying to heal with all the stuff that happens. You have a brain injury, your body's still trying to heal. So
Yes.
that's the
And
thing.
he's young, and he's
Yeah,
young, and we continue to find out new things and new treatments. And so
exactly.
like the hope of that. And that question that you said, like, I don't know how you do that. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know that there's ever a good situation where someone should say that. What do you
right.
think?
Yeah,
Like,
right. Yeah,
yeah, like, I don't know.
yes. And I
It's
understand that other things are harder, like people with anoxic brain injuries. A lot of people are failed suicide attempt by hanging or drug overdoses. And I
mm,
understand that their family members will come to this caregiving journey with a different feeling about it. Um, and but it's
and
but
lead
people
us into your
approach.
story too. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, people will want to
with
know.
Nick's different is that his came from a virus that caused a heart attack, which caused him to die at the house. But I was at the house when it happened, and then I
Mhm.
did CPR on him with his dad because he was home, which was a miracle. So we were both doing CPR. Obviously, we called the ambulance, and because of his virus that he didn't know he had, because he was just feeling tired. That was the only clue that we had. And he had a little bit of a fever, but it was nothing. He's 23 years old. He's a musician. He's a gamer. He's a young guy that just wants to be,
Typical, yeah.
yeah, just a dude, just being a dude. And so he didn't tell me that he was feeling poorly. The only way I knew was that night before, because he was a gamer. He used to game from like midnight till 3 a.m. with his buds, and but he went to bed at 8 at night or 9 at night the night
Mm.
before this happened, and I was like, that's weird, like something's happening. So in the morning, he said, I just feel tired. And I said, okay. And I took his temperature and I was like, let me make you some soup. Do you want some soup? He's like, yeah. And I gave him some soup. And the minute I walked out of his room, I heard this crazy noise, which I'll never forget. And then he hit the floor and died. And then I walked in his room and said, call 911, and then started CPR right away. But because of that whole situation, they said the stars align in a very negative way, and he has an anoxic brain injury from that because he had another heart attack when we got to the hospital too, on the CAT scan machine, and they
Mm.
kind of call code and they did the same thing and brought him back. So it was a pretty rough go for Nick.
Traumatic. I mean,
Very.
that's, and you were there in the obviously the front
Yes,
line of it all.
yes,
Like,
yes.
how have you dealt with this trauma around that day?
Um. Oh, it's okay, buddy. Nick's here too. Nick's here, and you'll hear him.
And he's listening to us.
Yes,
Yeah.
and he got
Hi, Nick.
he just got a little sad just now. Um. Yes, we're having it's the change of the season, and also this is his season. This is the month that he had his heart attack. October 31st, Halloween.
Wow.
So it's a sensitive time. So what was the question? Do you remember?
The trauma, like, how have you both dealt with the trauma, frankly?
Yeah. So we are well, I mean, just head on, basically. I'm one of those people that like life happens. Even since I was a little girl, not really great things happen to me. And when that happens, I just kind of like say, I don't deny what's ever happening. I just go like, okay, this is happening. I name it. And then I try to solve the situation. So
Mhm.
this happened. I knew I was bringing Nick home. He wasn't going to a nursing home, even though that is something that they always ask. You know, they try to promote a nursing home. But I've been around now in the anoxic brain injury community long enough to know that would be, I would have to be off the earth. You know what I mean? I would not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
the most last resort of last. And it has been yeah, it's been, I just kind of like jump in the deep end and just swim, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
For
You're a
Nick,
roll up your sleeves kind of
that's
gal.
it. Yeah, I've always been like that. That's exactly right. And like, that's how I started the Inspiration Cafe. Same thing. I mean, I saw a need. I wanted to do it. I didn't have any education in that at all. I found a book about how to start a nonprofit. I read it twice and started a nonprofit. And it took me a long time. And I also had lots of obstacles doing that, lots of obstacles. And people didn't believe in me and all the things, right? And then I had to like do something very dramatic to have people realize that I was serious. And that's the same thing with caregiving with Nick.
Yeah.
Same exact thing. It's just
Was your
like,
dramatic thing with caregiving bringing him home,
oh
or
yeah,
what was?
bringing him home. Yeah, like even the fact that when he was on a ventilator, and I saw when I watched your podcast, this is a story of other people. This is not like my story is not unique, which is annoying also. But yeah, so he was in a coma and an induced coma. They did it so his brain could heal, and he was on a ventilator, and it was that do or die time. And they said to me, you know, you need to go in there and decide like what you're going to do, you know, like if you're going to stop the machine or whatever. And I was just um, like, why is he failing? Is something happening? And as they were saying that, the harvest team, that's what they call them, the people that take your
The
organs, were in the hallway waiting. And I was like, this is a really weird situation. Like, I understand and I feel for the families that are waiting for something like that to happen, but
But then
it's
we
not
get back to
happening.
that value of life
Yeah,
type
yeah,
of thing again. It's
exactly.
like,
So they said, you know, go in and talk to Nick, and they just said you go in because they noticed that when I went in to talk to him, his vitals would change. So they knew he would respond to me more. And what they do is they take you out of the coma, they reduce the medicine. And then I looked at him, he looked at me, and I was just like, hey, dude, you know, like this is like, what are we gonna do? And he was nonverbal, but Nick completely, yeah, with his eyes, he was like so on point and totally was telling me with his eyes, like, I am not going out. And I think he has a lot of me and him where
yeah,
he was actually low key though before his brain injury. Like he's low key, but now I realize he's a flippin' fighter like me. You know, I mean, he just never showed it. Like I'm always in your face kind of person. He's not like that at all. He was always low key, but he always got it done, you know? And his
yeah.
friends even told me stories later about like these things that he would do. And I was like, wow, like he is a warrior. And he was just like looking at me like, no, no, no. And I was like, okay, dude, no.
Let's
And I
go.
went back out and I was like, sorry, this is not gonna happen. And
And I'm assuming your
sure
hubby
enough,
was on the
yeah,
same page
yeah,
with
yeah.
you.
We all we talked about it, and we were both like, "Hey, what you know, what do we want to do?" And it was all up to Nick. You know, if Nick looked like he was like over, he was too tired or whatever, I didn't know how I was going to figure that out either. But I knew this was the right path. And then we reduced the medicine, and then he started breathing on his own and doing the whole thing. And I was just like, okay, so this is it. Now his vessel, his body is different because he has a lot of spasticity in his hands, and he's fully disabled, and he can't speak. He's still nonverbal, although he expresses himself, and he'll
Yep.
tell me when he's annoyed or sad, or we also have this code with look up for yes, look forward, or down for no. And he talks to me that way. I also use a board where I have like a choice to look at either thing. Yeah, he's very, and also he's still mischievous. Like he used to be very funny, and he also still he's hold on. He's still my phone just rang, sorry, and it just
No
popped.
worries. I didn't
And I
hear
was
it.
trying to get it out, and I was just like, no. Yeah. Um, so he's still mischievous, and he also I'm the mom that used to be like the crazy dancing mom, doing things embarrassing on purpose, you know what I mean, for my kids. It's a funny,
Yeah.
he
It's
has a
part of the
twin sister,
fun.
Emily. Yeah. And we do things in grocery stores, and when we hear music, and they'll be like, we'll start to dance, just a funny thing. And
Yeah.
so I used to do that when he was gaming. I would fly into his room and I'd be like, dude, and I'd like, let's dance, and he he was like, no, like,
Like
no,
eyes straight ahead, we're
yeah,
down.
like,
Yeah.
no. And so now I do the same thing. Like, I'll hear music and I'm like, let's dance. And he'll just seriously look at me like, for
Not
real? Are
not the
you really?
mood.
Yeah, I'm
Not the
not
vibe
dancing.
today, mom.
Yeah, no.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you taking us back there. I feel like people need to kind of, understand that. And I know that, um, I know you have a care team around you with your husband and hopefully some other folks. Are there other folks that have surrounded you? No,
No.
no.
Well, in the
Talk
very
a little bit
beginning,
about that. Like, yeah,
yeah,
in
in
the
the very
beginning,
beginning is yes. And I mean, in the very beginning for sure, yes. And but just like, if someone had like, my friends who have breast cancer, same story that happens with them, right? So they have breast cancer, they get a rally of people, but if it's a long-term, illness, then people slowly go on with their lives. And also what's interesting, I find that they can't, like, people, well, sometimes I think people start thinking like, oh, this could happen in my life, like they
mm,
don't, almost like you're contagious in a way, I mean, like if this can happen in my life where I'm gonna have to take care of someone, and I'm, my message is like, yeah, it is gonna happen in your
oh,
life.
for sure, it will happen,
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And it might not be as dramatic and it might look differently, but it's definitely gonna happen. And so I'm 62 years old, and people in my community, like they're all retiring and they're like living their like best life and they're traveling and everything. And it's kind of like we don't have anything in common in that place, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's just interesting how people react. But it's just in anything, like any kind of tragedy, people like rally and then they either freak out or they fizzle out. So this
Because how
depends.
many years has it been on for your journey so
It will
far?
be 8 years this
This
Halloween.
month, this Halloween.
Yeah.
8 years. And so how do you, how have you and your husband, like,
Yeah.
how do
So
you
my
kind of
husband
still
works.
incorporate some of
Yeah,
your
so my
life?
husband works full-time at a library at Northwestern University. And he does that, and I'm the full-time caregiver. And then at night when he comes home, when he comes home, we have dinner together and do the family thing. And then he helps out at that time. Or so we have that. I have not found a caregiver. Like, I've interviewed lots of people, and I've had, a caregiver once in a while in the beginning when he first got injured. But it's really hard to find someone that is not afraid of brain injury. And also it's because he's nonverbal. People I don't know if they get frustrated or they don't know how to react. Because people want a conversation, they don't like that awkward silence, but I'm like,
No,
there's so many different ways to communicate. That's the way to learn. And also you could show things to Nick all the time, and he'll engage, you know what I mean? Like music or a movie, or like a joke, you know what I mean? Like any kind of like stuff like that, he'll
he
engage.
still
Like,
has all his five senses. Yeah.
yes, yeah, exactly. So he just can't speak to you. And yeah, so it's been difficult because, like, the state of Illinois, we have this thing where caregivers they're called personal assistants, we get paid. um you know
Thank
uh,
heavens. I wish we had that in Georgia. We don't have that.
yeah, we have it here in Illinois, right? And so, um, but I get so many hours that there's like, hey, you're like wasting all these hours that you don't get to use. You know what I mean? Because I don't have another caregiver.
Oh,
And
respite
so,
hours.
yeah, so I'm like, I know, but like I could get someone, and I've interviewed people, and when they finally like come here, they're like, no. And also because I want people who are physically fit in the way, and you can't say that, are you physically fit? Because you have to be, you like, we put Nick on the stander, which is like this, like a table that you lay someone on, and then you crank it up and then stand you
Yeah.
up. And it's so he gets, some good pressure on his bones and muscles. And so he, stays healthy, and his lymph system's moving and all the things. But that takes effort to get him on there, and also make sure he's okay, and then work with him while he's doing that. And if he has like any kind of episode, meaning like he starts coughing, or he's, anything that's riles him up, you have to like hold him and all that stuff. So
And work it
that's,
out.
yeah,
Yeah.
work it out. Exactly. And that's something people freak out. Even when I brought physical therapist in my own home, it's rare
Mm.
that I have someone that will do that. So yeah, so that's the challenge. And I have looked for places to for Nick to live if I ever leave the earth, because I just need to have a plan,
I,
And
I was go I was thinking about this question, and I thought, oh, I don't know. That's pretty.
yes, and Nick knows. We've talked about it. I mean, like, he knows. His sister isn't capable of taking care of him. That's what, she has said at this moment, you know what I mean? Because they're both the same, they're twins. And so we're trying to have like a place. And so I've looked at, like I told you, like looked at nursing homes, and I was like, no. There's a place here called Misericordia, which is that's been around for 60 years, that are for disabled adults. And and disabilities, meaning everything from Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, certain kind of brain injuries and stuff. And I've been in conversation with them, but because of the short staff thing, it's iffy. I flew out to California, where actually my daughter lives in LA, and there's a place there called Ryan's Reach, which was started by
Mm.
Pat Boone's granddaughter, because his grandson fell through a skylight and has a traumatic brain injury. And so it's called Ryan. His name is Ryan, and it's called Ryan's Reach. And I went there, and it's actually a couple group homes that have only four people in it, each thing. And that's the closest that I've come to finding a place.
Of like that's going to give you peace. Yeah, to
Yeah.
know he's.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the same, but in a similar way, my brother is neurodivergent, born with a developmental intellectual disability, totally verbal, but it is hard to find the right fit for him. Like
Yeah.
he's either in with people who he doesn't have a lot in common with. It's frustrating at the same, but we think about that as well. In my family, my parents are deceased, and if something happens to us, like what will happen?
What's the plan? Right.
What's the plan? And you do have to have those conversations. um you your videos on social media, and of course we'll link to everything at the end, but for those of you that are trying to kind of, are you work in this care economy, or are you also caring for somebody with a brain injury? Lisa's doing a lot to help normalize the conversations that your life is still valuable when you're not, nonverbal, but it doesn't mean you're non-communicating. Like,
Right.
and I think your videos really highlight that. So I encourage people to go out. But why is that important for you to do that?
Well, what's so amazing is that Nick's taught me about your soul. Like I always thought about, your soul, like what the essence of you. And when I learned about brain injury, when Nick started, when he had his brain injury, and I started really researching about brain injury and our brains, and how we're just really an electrical system. And that there's this girl that I follow who has a brain injury just from walking her dog, and she slipped on ice and she hit her head. And from that moment, she isn't able to work. And it's not like she still walks and talks and does all the things, but her brain is not the same. Or football players with CTE, that's because, the electrical, like getting hit, it's an
Yeah.
electrical pathway that gets interrupted, and then it totally changes you. And so we're literally like one little boop on our head. We're different people, 100%.
Yeah.
And so I'm so like fascinated about that. And then but then I realized that the essence of Nick, like when I'm with him, his pure essence, like there's no denying it's Nick, like like even his friends who come and visit him, they can sit with him and all of a sudden something will happen, a joke will happen, and then Nick will respond in his own way, like by kicking his leg up or moving his arm. And they're like, dude, like we know, like, yeah, it's Nick. You know what I mean? He's so funny.
Yes.
And then I was like, that's the thing, man. We are so attached to our physical bodies and like what we're, what all of us, like what we present to the world, but our souls are 100% intact. And I think that's the biggest gift that I've had, and when I do meditation, I'm a meditation, well, I'm trained to be instructor, but like I use meditation in my life.
Yeah, for yourself.
And
What
and
does your meditation look like? Because I know everybody's looks a little different.
oh yeah, I mean, I just I have a seated practice. Like every day I just, do like a breath work or some kind of centering prayer or something. But a lot of times I do like even mantra, ohms and just different mantras. And when I do that, Nick participates. And I'm like, okay, see, like energetically, he's aligned, like he does things.
Mhm.
And the other thing is that while I was doing the Inspiration Cafes, I've been a massage therapist because I never took a salary from Inspiration Cafes. It was just like I don't know, my drive
Mission.
mission,
Yeah.
yeah, to do it. But my job was a massage therapist. And in massage therapy, one of the things I learned was being a massage, like an infant massage instructor. And so when I became an infant massage instructor, one of the things that you do is that I never touched the baby. I only instructed the parent how to touch the baby. So I had like a doll to show what to do. So the parent, because it's a bonding thing with the parent.
Sure.
And every time before you do a massage on an infant, you put your hands up and you ask permission. And this is a little tiny baby, you obviously can't talk, like, and you say, I'm going to massage you. Are you okay? And you can tell by the way they look and how they engage if they're ready. And then you tell them, I'm going to touch your foot. I'm going to move, like, and you say it. The exact thing that I learned, all the cues happen with Nick. And then when I did research, I found out that you heal when you have a brain injury from your infant state. All your primal reflexes, all the things that babies do, like if you touch their cheek and they root, if you touch their foot a certain way, that's how your body heals. It goes backwards that way. I find that so
It's fascinating.
fascinating
Yes.
and amazing. And then I had to find doctors that believed in that, and like that's where we're at. So yeah, so it's been like a incredible
I'm
journey.
grateful. Yeah, I'm grateful that
Yeah,
you've got the tools through this prior business that you had, through the
right.
masseuse and the meditation. Like you came into the caregiving role with definitely some real awesome self-care tools,
Yeah,
for sure.
yes,
And I think that's great. And we're going to
yeah,
link to the Inspiration Corp and all that and some of the other things you said. So let's talk about joy, because like we
yeah,
talked about a lot of heavy stuff. Like
yeah.
how do you and Nick infuse some joy into your caregiving life?
Anything in nature. Anything in nature. We go to professional baseball, not like not like
The Cubs.
not like the Cubs, like whatever it is, like the minor league.
Minor league. Yeah,
But
minor
it's like
league.
it's called something, or National League or something. Anyways, it's a local team that we go to, and they have this really great handicap, accessible feature. It's called the Schaumburg Boomers. Schaumburg is a little
Yep.
yeah, a
The
suburban,
suburb.
yeah, suburb, yeah, and it's the Schaumburg Boomers, and I love them. And we go to baseball games in the summer, and we go nature walks, botanic garden. We have a beautiful garden here, called the Botanical Garden, like Chicago Botanic Garden. It's insane. beautiful. We go for walks, like that kind of stuff.
Nature's super healing.
Nature is super healing. It made me, it was so healing for me is that I actually just got certified to become a horticultural therapist.
Yeah,
So
what is that?
yeah, so that's where you use plant activities. Well, first of all, there's different ones. There's therapeutic horticulture and horticultural therapists. They're the same genre, but the way that you use it. So there's some that work in hospitals and nursing homes, and they work with teams of physical therapists, OT, PT, mental health, social workers, and you create plant projects, like even repotting a plant. Like like an example would be someone you're going to be in a dementia care ward with, and you're working with the social workers there. And so you are just replanting, like, say, geraniums, and you start having a conversation with the person that you're working with about when what was your childhood flowers, like what did you have in your childhood, because like long-term memory is something that
Yes.
and they
That you
start
can make a
talking about,
connection.
right, roses or geraniums, or like what do you love about them, what the colors, and you just engage. And while they're doing that, you can even have them standing, so it's balance work if you're having a standing table when you're repotting. The scents, if you bring in scents, if there was roses, if you just have essential oils and be like, oh, do you remember this scent, lavender, anything kind of engaging, engages your brain, engages conversation. And the social worker is there too, observing to see like where they are in their progress, or someone who has a stroke and they can't use maybe their right arm, but there's tools that are like grippers, there's ways that you can go around your arm, and there's grippers, and you also get them maybe standing up sometime, and they don't even realize they're doing balance work because they're standing, that they use these grippers, and you're just in a conversation, whatever you're doing,
it's therapy
really
without them knowing they're having therapy.
exactly.
So that's the horticulture therapy?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
that's a therapeutic horticulture.
Therapeutic horticulture. Got it.
Yeah, and so and then a horticultural therapist works like I'm an independent and on my own, and I would work with, like, I want to work with kids, like I work with neighborhood kids now, just in our neighborhood, and we do projects where we did like we painted birdhouses, and we looked up the birds, and then we did this like take a whisk, and you put like all kinds of material for nesting in it, like that. We planted a pizza garden this summer, which was super fun, which means
what is that?
Tomatoes, oregano, like whatever you put in a pizza, right? And you plant the garden like that, and it's just in a round pizza, so like each section you have that in there. And we've done wreaths together where you take flowers, and we do these little tiny baby, they're called tussie mussies. They're from way back in the 20s, in 1920s, where these like tiny little bouquets that women used to wear and hold, and so you can just do because they're miniature. Everybody likes to do mini things, fun things. And I work with like kids like that, and I like it because well, first of all, I didn't know I was going to love working with little kids. Which is crazy, because I always did stuff like that. I homeschooled our kids, Emily and Nick, for a while, for a couple of years, and I had a blast doing that. So I guess I already had an innate thing,
like a teaching thing.
But I didn't think that I didn't know that was my thing. And so I've been working with people, and then I worked with for my final project for school, I worked with people who were homebound online, and we did here they are. These are wildflower seed balls. Do you see them at all?
Yeah.
And so what we do is you take air dry clay, and then you flatten it out, and then you take wildflowers from from where you are. So I would take Midwest wildflowers, and South wildflowers, and and then sprinkle them in there, and then you close it up, and then they air dry, and then you whip these into wherever you want them. You know what I mean? You could plant them just nice, but I like the story about seed bombs is that, especially in Chicago, is that there was a group of, they're called guerrilla gardeners. On the south side of Chicago, there was a lot of empty lots, and there was a lot of like drug dealing and gang things happening, and people were like just treating the empty lots just like as a garbage pit, and the neighbors didn't want that anymore. And so the city wasn't moving quick enough. So what they did was they started cleaning up the empty lots, and then the city would put fences around, and they couldn't have access to the lots. So the people would create these
I
seed,
love it.
and they would whip them over the fence, and they would create flowers in the empty lots. And so that's where the guerrilla gardening came. But this is really great because it's dexterity work,
Yes.
you get to talk about the wildflowers. It's all about education, and it's just
Yeah,
conversation.
reminding you of playing Play-Doh when you were little.
Yes.
I love the connection. And I don't know if you're familiar, and maybe that you would even like, it was created with more of a dementia person in mind, but there's a partner I've worked with before called Connectivities Box that does like a monthly subscription
Remember, I
box.
won one.
Yes.
And
What did you
it.
think?
Yes. That's exactly like it.
Yeah. I mean, they don't just do horticulture things, but I really give them props for like putting some really cool stuff and
Oh
some
my
thought
gosh,
into
the
those
little
boxes.
hockey game, and all kinds of fun stuff.
Yes. And then I wanted to ask you about the kids. So like you're having kids come over. Are you exposing them to Nick too? Because
That's
like what a cool
Nick's with
thing.
us. Yeah. And it's what's interesting is, and I had to be open-hearted enough to accept this, that some children are afraid of Nick.
Well, they'll say the darndest things, like they do.
Yeah, I don't mind them talking like that, but they're like super afraid. I mean, they get super afraid. And then I was like, oh, but then we have conversations. I'm like, hey, he has a chair with wheels on it. You know what I mean? It's kind of cool. You can whip around, and we talk about just about like how he eats, because Nick eats through a tube in his stomach and things like that. The only thing I don't really share with them much is about how he got sick, because I don't want kids to think that they're going to get a virus and then it happen, because how in your mind you think, what do you mean he just had a like,
then they hear mom and dad had a virus,
and then their mom's calling me like, my kid can't sleep, you know what I mean? So I'm like, no. So I just say like, oh, Nick just had an accident, and I just leave it like that, like just hit an accident. And I tell the parents no, if they want to share, that's that's just their thing. I just don't want to like freak a kid out. Because Nick's
agreeing with you, I think.
Nick's twin sister, Emily, that would have been it. If Emily learned that when she was little, she would have came home and told me. Anytime she got sick, she'd be like, Mom, like, is something gonna happen to me? She would be that person.
Yeah. Well, what a gift that you're giving them, the gift obviously of the horticulture therapy, but then you're giving them this little side gift of like exposing them to caregiving and exposing them to Nick, who's in a chair, and what that all entails. I think it's having more of an impact than you probably know.
I hope so. The other way I expose Nick to the community at large is I teach fitness classes, and I haven't done it since COVID now, but right before COVID, I was teaching fitness classes at a facility that served older adults. And but I told them that I couldn't have the job because they knew me from, I worked there for them before Nick's brain injury. And then after Nick's brain injury, they were like, hey, would you, come back? And I was like, yeah, but Nick has to be with me. And they're like, okay. And so Nick would be in the gym with me, and I'd be teaching like a Zumba class or, some kind of dance fitness thing or weights, and Nick would be in there. And that was a really interesting experience, because these are older adults that are, when you get older, there's a lot of ageism and you become invisible, and they're not really feeling seen or heard, and the fitness class was bringing community together, and we're doing something helpful. But then Nick brought like, I don't know, like an awareness, like their life was really a lot more blessed than they knew.
Yeah, I get to do this. I get to get up and go to Zumba today.
Exactly. exactly.
I mean,
And
I felt like that with my mom was bedridden the last 2 years, and I was like, look, I am not complaining about. I was just thinking about it even last night, like how I get to reposition myself in the bed,
right.
like yeah,
Yeah. It's just standing up. You're just like, I could stand up. I could use my fingers. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Lots of gratitude things
Yes.
there, for
Yes.
sure, Lisa. And speaking of gratitude, and because this is a time of thing, I don't. You might like this horticulture uh, therapy idea of getting a pumpkin and turning it into a gratitude pumpkin, where you get a Sharpie and you write one thing on the pumpkin that you're grateful for, and then you'll have a Thanksgiving centerpiece
Oh, and then
with
when
all
and you can put
swirl
all
it around it.
no,
Yeah.
like where you cut open the top and you scoop out the seeds, then you could put a plant inside there. A mum
Oh, look at
centerpiece,
you. Way to
baby.
elevate it. Way to elevate that. I love that. So yeah, so cool. Don't carve it till you're ready to display your mom,
Yeah,
but
yeah, exactly.
yeah, because if you carve it now and then do your gratitude thing, it's going to be like
A
yucky and
mush,
stinky,
a mush.
a mushy pot. But I love
Yeah,
that. So, because again, that kind of goes with that gratitude practice. Well, I love that. Tell us, well, let's get into the journal. Our time is flying by, Lisa.
yeah.
So, but I did want to say too, you've influenced me because you did a little clip on we've been doing these collaborative real self-care tips, because I'm really interested in like, what are caregivers really doing to infuse self-care into their lives and not shoulding all over them, SHOULD. And one of your tips was about the basil, and I have
Yes,
my arrow garden, and my basil is out of control. Like I can't
yes,
use it to cook with it fast enough. So I've been clipping it, and I've been doing your rubbing and
yes.
smelling it.
Isn't
I
it
love
beautiful?
It's beautiful. And then I take it and I put it in my garbage disposal, and it makes my garbage disposal
Oh, I never
smell
even thought of
amazing.
that's a really smart thing.
Yeah, because then it's like, what do you
Yeah.
do with the title like
Because I've done it with
afterward?
lemon, but I've never done it with a
And I'm
basil.
inside, like my air garden is
Yeah.
just an indoor thing.
Yeah, that's
Um,
cool.
And the
That's so
Air Garden
cool.
is a really cool thing, because I was talking to another coaching someone yesterday, and their mom is feeling sad and isolated. She's an older adult where she lives. And I said, what did she like to do before she moved into assisted living? She said, oh, she was really into gardening. And I said, well, do they have a garden there? And she said, no, they don't have one. I said, well, maybe they could start one. I said, but in the meantime, there's this thing, like at least you get
Yes,
a little bit of, bringing that
absolutely.
gardening indoors.
I do that with microgreens with people.
Yes,
Microgreens are really, really easy to grow, and they're really good for you as a person eating it. And yeah, anything green and growing, it's good.
into some of that stuff when we get there. Okay, so the Just For You Daily Self-Care Journal. This is a book I wrote. We're going to do a lightning round of it, where whatever comes into your mind is the right answer, Lisa.
Okay. Woo,
Um,
lightning round.
lightning round. Okay, what is one self-care activity that you could do while you're waiting for something to happen? Like
Oh,
waiting in a
well,
line, waiting for
I
an
actually,
appointment.
I'm actually, because I'm married to a librarian and also love books, I always have books with me. I have books with me. And so I'm that weirdo that has like a book in my backpack and I read. Yeah.
Yes. Have you read anything good lately? I gotta ask.
Well, yes. I mean, but I usually read, like about permaculture and you know what I
Okay.
mean? Gardening and things like that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. I also am a big reader. I love it. It's a great escape. Okay, what?
And actually go to the library, you know what I mean? To get books,
I
you know what I'm
just
saying?
went yesterday. I didn't get books, but I had to renew my library card. I'm a Libby audiobook
Yeah,
listener.
yeah,
I always have a paperback going, but I like to go to this used bookstore
yes,
and get them
yes.
and then gift them to somebody. But Libby is an app that people can get, and all they need is a library card. And I'm like,
Yeah,
this is the most underutilized place, the library. Like, go here.
100%, 100%.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's free.
I
You
know that and
you
hoopla.
can't beat free.
Yeah.
What's something that you were afraid to do and did it anyway?
Catheter Nick. Sorry. That's what it's.
Yes.
Yes. Having to do a straight cath on Nick. That was That was and a nurse was she coached me through, and she would not let me fail. She was just like, no, you have to do it like this.
Mindset.
Yes. And she's just doing it like, we're going to do it this way. We're going to do this way. And we did it. And it was the game changer. Yeah.
I'm so glad that she was the person that
Yeah.
was showing you how to do that. Okay, let's see. This might be the last one here. What are you looking forward to doing this week?
Oh, this week. Well, my 35th wedding anniversary is on Sunday.
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks. So we usually go to a local restaurant that we know the owners, and they love Nick. And so
What is it? We're gonna plug it.
it's called the Candlelight Chicago.
Yum.
It's on Western and Howard. Yep. And in Rogers Park. And it's been around for over 40 years. It's a pizza joint, but it has regular food too, burgers and all kinds of stuff, but they're known for their pizza. And because it's Chicago pizza.
But it should, okay, it is
thin,
for this.
It's thin,
It's
but
thin.
they have a Detroit one too there. That's a thicker pizza in case people, want thick pizza.
Yes, yeah. I had a meetup recently when I went up to Chicago with a couple folks, caregiving folks, Chris McCabe from Life with Grams, and Joe and Bella's, one of the Ben from Joe and Bella. I'm like, who? And some other folks. And we were talking about how Chicago pizza is not the deep dish pizza with all the sauce.
We do have deep dish, the Malnati's.
Yes.
The Malnati.
But they really feel like Chicago pizza is what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's definitely a debate. Just like our two baseball teams, the White Sox and the Cubs. It's a huge debate. If you say
who has the best hot dog, I'm sure that's a debate.
Oh yeah, all the same. Yeah, it's a debate. So
those are the kind of debates that I would like to be a part of, though. I don't like these other debates going on in the world today. Like, let's talk hot dogs and pizza and baseball, people. Wouldn't the world be better if we were just debating on all of that? Well, yeah. Lisa, you and Nick, thank you, Nick, for allowing your mom this space to.
Here, I'm gonna show Nick at the end here, right?
Okay.
So you guys can.
And can he hear me, Lisa?
Yeah.
Hey, Nick. I'm Elizabeth, and your mom and I have known each other for a while. Thank you so much for giving your mom the space to share both of your stories today on the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast. You're going to enlighten a lot of people. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
I'm grateful for you, Lisa.
I'm grateful for you too. Thank you for this
opportunity. And just to wrap it all up, instead of folks saying, I don't know how you do it, instead say, Lisa, you are a remarkable human being, and Nick is pretty cool. And those are the kinds of comments that I'm sure Lisa and Nick would like to hear the next time that you encounter them.
Yes. And also, like, how are you feeling today? Like this day?
Yes.
I mean, like just at this moment, because I know that just like in people who are grieving, they have different times when they're not feeling steady, and sometimes they are. Like, so I say, how are you feeling today?
Yeah. And how do people stay connected with you, Lisa? Like, what's the best way to get in touch with you? If someone hearing your story, they want to reach out, they want to learn more about the stuff that you do with horticulture, or how.
I have Instagram. It's lisa.nigro. That's Lisa Nigro, like that, lisa.nigro. But I also have my other one for caregiving naturally. That's an Instagram too, and you can reach me there. I'm on Facebook too, but I'm not really a Facebook type of person. So
yeah, me neither. I'm on it, but I don't love it. Yeah, and then you have a website, Lisa.
Oh yeah, on my website. Yeah, because it's a landing page, and I don't think of it as a website. You know what I mean? It does tell my story though, and you can get a hold of me that way. So it is, yeah.
Lisa-nigro.com.
Yeah.
Doesn't get easier than that. Yeah. Lovely. Thank you so much, Lisa, for everything that you've shared today. You have enlightened me in so many ways, and you've definitely elevated my love for nature even more. So thank you so much for spending this time with me today.
Okay, send me a picture of your pumpkin.
Yes, likewise. Let's do our gratitude pumpkins.
Yes.
All right, take care.